Hello and welcome to FTTR, I am Ewan McQuaid, and today what I'm going to be talking about is this little beauty, WWE 2K14. Now why am I talking about WWE 2K14? Well, one, I will very shortly have a video up of RetroMania Wrestling. That will be out on Wednesday, hopefully. And I've just been diving back into some wrestling games just because I'm so hyped for that one. And I've dived into what I believe is the best wrestling game engine slash system slash gameplay in all of wrestling games, and that is WWE 2K14. Now, WWE 2K14 is the last game that was on, I believe, PS3. It was on the last generation. Is it the last generation of consoles? Sort of, I don't know, now that the PS5 and everything's out, but on that generation of consoles, and it was really, really fast paced. It was a really good sort of technical way of building a wrestling match, you know. It was very simple. X was grapple, R2 was reverse, and in that way you could just chain grapple after grapple after grapple after grapple, and it really felt fluid. It really felt like more like an indie match than it does a typical WWE match. And that system, where it just builds into bigger, heavier moves, was something that was introduced in WWE 22 SmackDown vs Raw 2011, I do believe. And it's just been perfected in this one. It is so seamless, like the way it just flows, everything just goes together and moulds into what feels like an actual wrestling match. Like every match you have feels like a 5-star classic because it eventually just ends in one finisher. And that is just perfect. That is really good wrestling gameplay, and something that's been lost in the recent 2K games and the 2K arcade games. And WWE 2K14 absolutely nailed wrestling story mode. And when I say story mode, I'm talking about the 2K Showcase mode, because that is how I believe wrestling games should focus on story modes going forward. Because the difficulty with doing a career mode is that, is it kayfabe and is it not? So if you want to play, for example, I think one of the better story modes slash career modes is in Fire Pro Wrestling World, where that is basically like, it is a story, but it's more based in reality, as well as the GM mode that you can get in that game, Fire Promoter. This retelling of each WrestleMania is very similar to Legends of WrestleMania, which I've also talked about on this channel, but it just feels the right way to progress, going from WrestleMania to WrestleMania to WrestleMania. That is what I think the game does really well in terms of its story. The other modes, you know, universe mode and everything like that, take a leave, but 30 years of WrestleMania is just phenomenal. It's a really incredible mode. And if you haven't checked out that, I would check that out. Now, the match types as well. Let's talk about the match types, because some of these match types have been lost to time. If anyone remembers, WWE 2K15 just dropped a load of match types for no reason. There are very few match types in WWE 2K15. And WWE 2K14 had some of the best that I'd just love to see come back. You know, we had Inferno, we had I Quit, Special Referee. All of these types were just lost, and they did them in a really good way. The I Quit match might be a little too similar to a Last Man Standing match, but the way you could sort of stop your opponent from getting back up just by intimidating them works well with the theme of the match. And they nailed some of these match types. They just work so well. The cage match and everything, really fun gameplay. However, and I don't know whether this is going to get me a bit of heat for saying this, but I think the biggest negative with WWE 2K14 is the roster. And you might be like, if you played this game, you'll be like, the roster's huge, there's so many, there's about 40 people on there. I'm specifically talking about the main roster of people, because I was playing it the other day and I was scrolling through, who do I want to play as? And you scroll through and it is just so mid-card, unbelievably mid-card, and maybe that's a detriment to the product at the time that they didn't have anyone who felt like a top star, but it is just do I really want to play as some of these? You know, you've got people who are staples from the other games, so you've got your Batistas, you've got CM Punk, you've got Cena, Undertaker, Jericho, all those who've crossed over, but sort of the newer ones are just, like really like Brodus Clay, Mark Henry, sorry Mark Henry, but that's how I feel, Damien Sandow, it's just meh, it's just so meh, and I'm like, do I really want to play as some of these? I usually just revert back when I'm playing the game to the more standard, you know, Undertaker versus CM Punk kind of mould, or I'll play a Legends match. And that is my biggest gripe with the game, is just the roster in general is just so meh and so bland that I can't remember a lot of the people who were in it and how mid-card that felt at the time, and also feels now looking back, because that's the best way to look at wrestling games, is they are a representation of what the product was at the time. And if that's a representation of 2013-14 WWE, I don't particularly want to revisit that, not gonna lie. Yeah, it's a bit shaky. But other than that, I think WWE 2K14 is just an incredible game. It really is, it's an incredible wrestling game. It's just fluid, seamless, has all the modes you want, all the match types you'd want, and there's nothing better, to be honest. It's one of my favourites. It's not my favourite, it's one of my favourites. And if you haven't played it, I'd highly recommend it if you've got an old console. So let me know, what is your favourite wrestling game of all time? Let me know in the comments below. Have you played WWE 2K14? Are you still playing WWE 2K20? Anyone? And I will have a video about RetroMania up on Wednesday, so keep your eyes peeled for that if you are interested. Thank you all for your support, thank you all so much. Thank you, and have a nice day.